I'm going to say something that a lot of people and maybe some Michigan fans won't like, and just college football fans or sports fans in general won't like, because they always want a definitive, either things are broken or they're fixed and perfect. And that's, Ohio State could have a really great team and they could have a winning culture and a functional program and all those good things. And Michigan could have all of that too. But when they play, somebody's got to lose the game, and that team could still be a great culture, great program with a really good coach, and be doing things right. But somebody's going to walk off the field a loser. So you can still do things the right way, and it's not going to work out every time. And you don't have to look for something obviously being a miss or dysfunctional or broken or heads need to roll. All right.
And I think, sorry, to that point,
Sure.
I think you did see that in the Michigan versus Michigan State game. I thought that Michigan did a lot of things right. They also did a lot of things wrong, but both teams played good games, I think, in general. And then there was just down the stretch, it was back and forth, and Michigan State came out on top. But I wouldn't say that it was like, there were a lot of people out there, same old Harbaugh, same old thing. Yeah, they did end up, losing a late lead there. I didn't think that felt like it was the same thing that we've seen in the past. It felt like it was still like, man, they had their chances, and it just like it was one of those really good football games that one team unfortunately had to come up short. So I agree with you. That's happened once, and it might happen twice this year. And so then my question actually is, I saw somebody say if Michigan loses to Ohio State, well, this season is a failure. Well, if Michigan loses a good game to Ohio State and they have their only 2 losses, I know they're to their rivals, but they're to 2 top 5 teams essentially. How do you say that's a failure of a season? I don't know. It's this tough thing, right?
Absolutely, it is. And yeah, that was one of the best games I've seen this season, Michigan State. And not to drag up old wounds, but Jim Harbaugh was certainly talking about this leading up even to the day of the Penn State game. It doesn't help the situation, doesn't help the standings, doesn't change anything. But the Big Ten office did admit to some missed calls in that game.
Yeah, and so that's where, I think there could be a situation here at the end of the year, even, right now, where everyone's kind of kicking themselves in Ann Arbor like, man, that was our game. We should have won that, and still feeling like we were the better team on the field that day and should have came out with a W. And then so some people are dragging Jim Harbaugh saying, oh, he's whining. He's still talking about those calls. Well, when you take away points off the board in a 4-point game, that's going to eat at you, and then when they come out and say, yeah, we screwed up, but you have to live with that loss on your schedule that is affecting what could happen for you at a chance at a championship. I think anybody would eat at you, right? And yeah, there's going to be coaches, people are going to say, well, he's got to be the bigger man. He gets paid millions of dollars to deal with this. I think he's fighting for his team. Honestly, I think it's this guy that's like, man, I felt like we deserved to win that ball game. And, there are also things where I say, well, you could have, not gotten 4 offsides calls, or delay of games, whatever you want to call them, which caused, there were a lot of things outside the calls that caused Michigan to lose that game. But I think he's fighting for his team. And so, yeah, I think that there are things there where it's like, yeah, you can call Jim Harbaugh a whiner, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's more so where he's like, I thought that my guys deserved that W, and it would have put us in a better position to win the Big Ten right now. So I'm going to keep bringing it up until something, ultimately gets changed here for the future.
And that's why coaches at this level at a school like that get paid so much money. If they had gone out and not played well against Penn State and got their brains beaten in, then the complaints would have been, of course, that he distracted the team. They weren't prepared. They weren't focused on Penn State. They were still whining, and they still had their heads in East Lansing against Michigan State. But he was able to do both at the same time. Prepare his team, separate that from, okay, I'm doing this over here. I'll take care of the Big Ten office, but we're going to prepare to play Penn State at the same time.
Yeah, and I also think, too, listen, what I think, the people that are calling Jim Harbaugh a whiner and saying he keeps bringing it up after 2-3 weeks, they saw the headline. They didn't watch the press conference. If you watch the press conference, Angelique Chengelis asks him a straight up question: did you get notification that they screwed up the call? He answers, yes, I got notification that they screwed up the call and other calls. And that was pretty much the end of it, right? And so the headline then goes to Jim Harbaugh still talking about, missed calls from the Michigan State game. But he answered a question from a reporter, and that was pretty much it. He didn't bring it up himself. He didn't go into he really answered it pretty directly too.
I'm glad that you clarified that, because I will count myself in that group, because I saw comments online. I saw headlines. I also heard in the game broadcast, they said Jim Harbaugh has been talking about this up until this game.
Oh my God. See, I mean, this is the thing with Jim Harbaugh too, is that Jim Harbaugh gets clicks and views no matter what. So everyone's going to talk about it. And whether you love it or not, that's Jim Harbaugh, right? And so it could be great stuff. It could be negative stuff. Obviously, in his Michigan tenure, it's going to be more negative stuff because he hasn't done he hasn't produced on the field in terms of wins. And so guess what? I mean, that's just kind of what you get, unfortunately, when you bring Jim Harbaugh onto your staff, is people are going to talk about him. And so it can be, I think obviously when they brought him on in 2015, they thought, yeah, he's going to be this big rock star that's in the news all the time for good things. Unfortunately for Michigan fans, we're at this point where he's, it's a lot of negative. But yeah, that's kind of where you're at for sure.